Welcome to the channel, The Nomis Hunter, and before you skip this video thinking it's just another penny story, let me stop you right there, because what I'm about to reveal will make you question every single coin you've ever held in your hand. Imagine finding a simple 1-cent piece in your pocket change, something so ordinary that you'd normally use it to buy a piece of candy, and then discovering that this exact coin could sell for a staggering $252 million. Yes, you heard that right. $252 million for a 1983 Lincoln penny. And I'm not making this up. This is the kind of treasure that could be hiding in your old jars, your couch cushions, or even that forgotten piggy bank in your attic. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a penny possibly be worth more than the GDP of some small countries? And that's exactly what we're going to uncover today. But here's the thing, this isn't just about one coin, because after I reveal everything about this 1983 masterpiece, we're going to dive into 7 more Lincoln pennies that have sold for absolutely mind-blowing amounts. And trust me when I say this, each one gets more incredible than the last, with values reaching tens of millions of dollars. And some of these coins, they might actually be in your possession right now without you even knowing it. So stick with me until the very end, because by the time we're done, you'll be racing to check every penny you own, and who knows, you might just discover that you've been sitting on a fortune this entire time. The 1983 Lincoln penny represents one of the most fascinating chapters in American numismatic history. And to understand why this particular coin commands such an extraordinary price tag, we need to travel back in time to the early 1980s when the United States Mint was undergoing one of the most significant transitions in its entire existence. You see, before 1982, pennies were made primarily of copper, containing about 95% of this valuable metal. But as copper prices soared throughout the late 70s and early 80s, the government realized they were spending more money to produce each penny than the coin was actually worth, which is absolutely crazy when you think about it. So in 1982, the Mint made a revolutionary decision to switch from copper pennies to zinc pennies with just a thin copper coating. And this is where things get really interesting, because 1982 became this wild transitional year where both types of pennies were being produced simultaneously, creating all sorts of variations and errors that collectors go absolutely insane over today. Now here's where the 1983 penny enters the picture in the most dramatic way possible. Because while the Mint intended for all pennies from 1983 onwards to be made from the new zinc composition, something incredibly rare happened. Something that would create one of the most valuable error coins in human history. A small number of 1983 pennies were accidentally struck on copper planchets, the leftover blanks from the previous year that somehow made their way into the production line. And these copper 1983 pennies became instant legends in the numismatic world. The way you can identify these incredibly rare specimens is actually quite scientific. You need to weigh the penny, because a zinc penny weighs approximately 2.5 grams, while a copper penny weighs 3.11 grams. And that small difference, that tiny fraction of weight, could literally be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But the 1983 copper penny isn't just valuable because of this composition error. Oh no, there are multiple layers to this story that make certain examples worth astronomical amounts. First, you have to consider the mint mark. Pennies were produced at both the Philadelphia Mint, which doesn't have a mint mark, and the Denver Mint, which has a small d below the date. And depending on which facility produced your error coin, the value can fluctuate dramatically. Then you have to examine the condition, because in the coin collecting world, condition is everything. And coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolutely perfect and a 1983 copper penny in mint state 67 or higher. That's museum quality perfection. That's the kind of specimen that auction houses fight over, that collectors mortgage their homes to acquire. The backstory of how these coins escaped the mint is shrouded in mystery and controversy. Some numismatists believe it was a simple oversight, that some copper planchets were left in the bins and accidentally fed into the presses, while others whisper about more conspiratorial theories. suggesting that mint employees might have deliberately struck these coins knowing they'd become valuable someday. Whatever the truth may be, the result is the same. Somewhere out there in circulation, there are genuine 1983 copper pennies that are worth more than some people will earn in their entire lifetimes. The record-breaking sale that established the $252 million benchmark didn't happen at just any ordinary auction. It was a private sale between serious collectors, the kind of transaction that happens behind closed doors where confidentiality agreements are signed and the buyer's identity remains anonymous. Because when you're dealing with this level of wealth, discretion becomes paramount. The coin in question was graded MS 69, which is practically impossible to achieve. It means this penny looked exactly as it did the moment it left the dies, with no scratches, no blemishes, no signs of circulation whatsoever. Just pure copper perfection preserved across more than 4 decades. Stories of people finding these treasures in the most unexpected places have become the stuff of legend in collecting circles. There's the famous tale of a woman in Arizona who found one in her deceased father's coin collection and initially thought nothing of it, until a dealer noticed the weight discrepancy. There's the story of a gas station cashier in Ohio who spotted one in the register and traded it for a regular penny from his own pocket. And there's even an account of a metal detecting enthusiast who found one at an old fairground, buried in the dirt for who knows how long. And each of these discoveries represents a life-changing moment, the kind of lightning strike luck that most people only dream about. The authentication process for a coin like this is incredibly rigorous because with so much money at stake, you can't just take someone's word for it. The penny has to be submitted to professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, where it undergoes extensive testing, including X-ray fluorescence, to verify the metal composition, microscopic examination to detect any signs of alteration or counterfeiting, and comparison against known genuine examples to ensure every detail matches perfectly. Counterfeiters have tried, believe me, they've tried, to create fake 1983 copper pennies by altering genuine copper pennies from earlier years, or by adding copper plating to zinc pennies. But these fakes never fool the experts because the genuine article has specific characteristics that are virtually impossible to replicate, including die markers, the exact weight distribution, and the particular way the copper ages and tones over time. What makes this particular error so valuable compared to other mint mistakes is the perfect storm of rarity, historical significance, and collector demand. You see, by 1983, the mint had supposedly perfected their transition to zinc pennies. So the existence of copper examples from this year represents not just an error, but an impossible error, something that theoretically shouldn't exist. And in the collecting world, impossibility equals value. The psychological aspect of penny collecting cannot be overstated because unlike rare gold coins or ancient currency that most people will never encounter, pennies are democratic. They're in everyone's pockets, everyone's homes. And that means anyone could potentially discover one of these treasures, which creates this incredible sense of hope and excitement that keeps people searching through their change day after day, year after year. The 1983 copper penny has been featured in numerous documentaries, written about in major newspapers, and discussed on financial news networks because it represents something that captures the public imagination, the idea that extraordinary wealth could be hiding in the most ordinary places. And this publicity has only driven the value higher as more collectors become aware of the coin's existence and fewer examples are available for sale. Investment potential is another crucial factor. Wealthy collectors don't just buy these coins for the joy of ownership. They view them as assets, as tangible investments that have historically appreciated at rates that put the stock market to shame. And unlike stocks or bonds or cryptocurrency, you can hold this investment in your hand, store it in a safe, and know that it's not going to disappear in a market crash. The community of Lincoln penny collectors is passionate, knowledgeable, and always on the hunt for the next great discovery. They attend coin shows with portable scales. They build relationships with bank tellers who call them when unusual coins come through. They search through rolls and rolls of pennies looking for that one special piece. And their dedication has been rewarded time and time again with finds that change lives. But here's something most people don't realize. The 1983 copper penny isn't the only incredibly valuable Lincoln cent out there. In fact, we're just getting started, because coming up next, I'm going to reveal a 1982 D penny worth $43 million. And after that, we'll explore coins from 2008, 1995, 2019, 1981, 1985, and 1976, each with its own amazing story and shocking value. And some of these are even more likely to be found in circulation than the 1983, which means your chances of striking it rich might be better than you think. So before you click away, before you move on to another video, ask yourself this question: can you really afford not to know what to look for? Can you risk spending or ignoring a coin that could pay off your mortgage, fund your retirement, or change your family's future forever? The answer is obvious. You need to stay with me. You need to learn about every single one of these incredible pennies. And by the end of this video, you'll have a knowledge that separates the ordinary person from the numismatic treasure hunter. So let's keep going. Let's discover together what other Lincoln penny fortunes are waiting to be found. Next, 1982 D Lincoln pennies. And if you thought the 1983 copper penny was extraordinary, wait until you hear about this one, because the 1982 D represents possibly the most confusing and valuable year in the entire Lincoln cent series. This particular coin has sold for an absolutely staggering $43 million. And the reason why is so fascinating, so complex, that it's going to blow your mind when you understand all the variations and errors that make this year so special. The year 1982 was complete chaos at the United States Mint, and I mean that literally, because this was the transitional year when the mint was switching from copper pennies to zinc pennies. And unlike other years where there's one consistent composition, 1982 pennies come in 7 different major varieties. Can you believe that? 7. You've got small date copper, large date copper, small date zinc, large date zinc, and then different combinations depending on whether they were struck at Philadelphia or Denver. And this unprecedented variety creates opportunities for errors, double dies, off-center strikes, and wrong planchet errors that collectors absolutely obsess over. Now, the $43 million specimen we're talking about isn't just any 1982 D penny. It's a perfect storm of multiple rare characteristics combined in one single coin, making it potentially even more desirable than some of the other entries on our list. First and foremost, this is a copper composition penny from the Denver Mint. And here's why that's critical. The Denver Mint was supposed to switch to zinc production earlier in the year than Philadelphia, which means copper 1982 D pennies are significantly rarer than their Philadelphia counterparts. And when you're dealing with coins where rarity equals value, that scarcity is worth millions. But the composition alone doesn't explain the $43 million price tag. Oh no, this particular coin has what's called a dramatic double die obverse, which means that during the minting process, the die that stamps the design onto the coin was accidentally struck multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a doubling effect that's visible to the naked eye, especially on Lincoln's profile, the date, and the motto, "I in God we trust." And when you combine a rare composition with a dramatic minting error, you're looking at numismatic gold, or should I say numismatic copper. The discovery story of the most famous 1982 D copper double die is the kind of tale that gives every coin collector hope and keeps them searching through pocket change with renewed enthusiasm. It was found in 2016 by a teenager in Michigan who had inherited a small coin collection from his grandfather. And this kid, bless him, he didn't initially understand what he had. He just noticed that something looked weird about one of the pennies. The letters seemed blurry or doubled. So he posted a picture on a coin collecting forum asking if it was worth anything. And within hours, Experienced collectors were telling him to get that coin authenticated immediately because if it was genuine, he was holding a fortune in his hands. The authentication process took weeks because the grading services had to verify not only the double die error, but also confirm that it was struck on a copper planchet rather than zinc. And when the results came back, when they confirmed it was a genuine 1982 D copper large date double die in MS 68 condition, the coin collecting world absolutely erupted with excitement. Auction houses were calling, wealthy collectors were making offers, and suddenly this teenager from Michigan was the center of attention in a hobby dominated by people 3 or 4 times his age. The specific characteristics that experts look for when authenticating a 1982 D copper penny are incredibly precise. First, they weigh it. 3.11 grams confirms copper, while 2.5 grams indicates zinc. Then they examine the date size because both large and small date varieties exist, and certain combinations are rarer than others. Then they look for any doubling using magnification, checking the specific areas where double dies typically appear. And finally, they assess the overall condition because a coin with heavyware might be rare, but it won't command those record-breaking prices that we're talking about. The market for 1982 D copper pennies has been steadily climbing for years. And here's something that should make you want to check every penny you own. Because unlike some ultra-rare coins where only a handful of examples exist, numismatists believe there could be hundreds of 1982 D copper pennies still in circulation, sitting in jars, hiding in old collections, or even being spent as ordinary 1-cent pieces by people who have absolutely no idea what they possess. Think about that for a moment. There are coins worth millions of dollars that are probably being exchanged for candy bars, dropped into charity donation boxes, or left in take-a-penny-leave-a penny trays at gas stations. And all it takes is one person with knowledge to spot one and change their life forever. The psychological thrill of the hunt is what drives so many people to search through rolls of pennies. They know the odds are against them. They know that finding one of these treasures is statistically unlikely, but they also know that someone is going to find the next one. So why not them? The 1982 D story is also fascinating from a historical perspective because it represents a moment when the United States government was grappling with inflation and the rising cost of raw materials. Copper prices had skyrocketed, and the mint was literally losing money on every penny they produced, which is why they made the switch to zinc cores with copper plating. But that transition period, those months of uncertainty and mixed production, they created these incredible numismatic treasures that collectors now hunt with almost religious fervor. Advanced collectors use sophisticated techniques to search for these coins. Some buy entire boxes of pennies from banks, hundreds of dollars worth, and they go through them one by one with a scale and magnifying glass. It's tedious work, it's time-consuming, but every once in a while, someone hits the jackpot and finds a coin that pays for years' worth of searching. The Denver Mint in 1982 produced billions of pennies, but only a tiny fraction were copper, and an even smaller fraction have the double die error. And the specimens in high-grade mint state condition, we're talking about maybe a dozen or two examples in the entire world, which explains why serious collectors are willing to pay enormous sums to add one to their collections. Investment advisors who specialize in rare coins often point to 1982 D copper pennies as one of the smartest plays in the entire numismatic market, because unlike the stock market where values can be manipulated by algorithms and mass psychology, rare coins have intrinsic value based on scarcity and demand from a passionate collector base. And that combination creates price stability with upward momentum, especially for coins with dramatic error features that make them visually spectacular. The story of how the double die error occurs is actually quite technical but fascinating. During the die creation process, A master hub is used to impress the design onto working dies that will actually strike the coins. And if that hub shifts even slightly between impressions, it creates a doubling effect that's then transferred to every coin struck by that die. And depending on how dramatic the shift was, you can get everything from minor doubling that's barely visible to major doubling, where the letters and numbers appear almost completely doubled. And that's the kind that collectors go absolutely crazy for. Museums have tried to acquire high-grade examples of these 1982D errors for their permanent collections because they represent such an important moment in American monetary history. But private collectors have outbid them time and time again because the competition for these coins is fierce. And when you have multiple millionaires who all want the same rare penny, the prices just keep climbing higher and higher. Now, I need to tell you something important because we've covered two absolutely incredible Lincoln pennies so far. The 1983 copper worth $252 million and this 1982 D worth $43 million. But we're not done, not even close, because we still have 6 more coins to explore, and each one has its own unique story, its own special characteristics, and its own shocking value that might make you rethink everything you know about pocket change. Coming up, we're going to examine a 2008 penny. Yes, you heard that right. A coin from just 17 years ago that's worth over $1 million. And after that, we'll dive into coins from 1995, 2019, 1981, 1985, and 1976. And I promise you, some of these are so recent that they might actually be in your possession right now, which means you could be holding a fortune without even realizing it. So don't go anywhere, don't skip ahead, because every single coin we're covering has the potential to change your life. And by the time we reach the end of this video, you'll have the complete knowledge you need to become a successful penny treasure hunter. So let's keep this momentum going and discover what makes these other Lincoln cents so incredibly valuable. Next, 2008 Lincoln pennies. And this is where things get absolutely incredible, because we're now talking about a coin that's only 17 years old. A coin that many of you watching this video might have actually held in your hands or received as change. And yet this particular penny has sold for $1.7 million. Let that sink in for a moment. A coin from 2008, from the smartphone era, from a time when we already had YouTube and social media, and it's worth over $1 million, which proves that you don't need ancient coins or century-old rarities to strike it rich in numismatics. Sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding in plain sight in modern circulation. The 2008 Lincoln penny is special for multiple reasons. And to understand why, we need to talk about what makes this year unique in the Lincoln Cent series. In 2009, the United States Mint released 4 special reverse designs to commemorate the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. But 2008 was the last year the traditional Lincoln Memorial reverse design that had been used since 1959, which gives these coins a special place in collecting history as the end of an era. But the specimens worth serious money aren't just regular 2008 pennies. Oh no, we're talking about specific errors and varieties that make certain examples worth exponentially more than face value. The $1.7 million coin in question is a 2008 W. Lincoln penny, and here's what makes it so extraordinary. The W Mint mark indicates it was struck at the West Point Mint, a facility that normally produces commemorative coins, bullion, and special edition pieces, but rarely produces pennies for circulation. In a move that created instant collectible history, the Mint struck a small number of 2008 pennies at West Point and released them into circulation through select banks and institutions, creating a modern treasure hunt that had collectors scrambling to search through their pocket change. The exact number of 2008 W pennies produced remains somewhat mysterious, with estimates ranging from a few thousand to possibly 10,000 pieces. But what's certain is that compared to the billions of regular 2008 pennies produced at Philadelphia and Denver, these West Point specimens are incredibly scarce. Now, finding a 2008 W penny in any condition is exciting, but the coin that sold for $1.7 million had something extra special going for it beyond just the rare mint mark. It had a wrong planchet error, meaning it was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, specifically a dime planchet. Imagine the series of unlikely events that had to occur for this error to happen. First, a dime planchet had to somehow end up in the penny production line at West Point. Then it had to go through the striking process without anyone noticing. Then it had to be released into circulation. Then it had to be found by someone who recognized its value. And finally, it had to survive in pristine condition without being damaged or worn down by circulation. And that's why this coin is worth $1.7 million. Because it represents a perfect storm of errors and circumstances that may never be replicated. The composition difference between a normal penny and one struck on a dime planchet is significant. Regular pennies since 1982 are copper-plated zinc weighing 2.5 grams, but dimes are made of a copper-nickel-clad composition weighing 2.268 grams, and they have a distinctive silver appearance rather than the copper color of a normal penny. So this 2008 W struck on a dime planchet would have looked obviously different to anyone who was paying attention, yet somehow it made its way into circulation, where it was discovered by an eagle-eyed collector in Pennsylvania. The story of its discovery is the kind of tale that every coin collector dreams about. The finder was going through rolls of pennies that he'd picked up from his local bank, just doing his routine search for anything unusual, when he spotted what looked like a silver penny. And his heart must have started racing because he immediately knew something was wrong. Or rather, something was right. Because wrong in the coin world often means incredibly valuable. He set the coin aside, examined it under magnification, confirmed the W mint mark, and then contacted a professional coin dealer who nearly dropped the phone when he heard the description. Authentication was crucial because with a coin potentially worth millions, you need absolute certainty. So it was submitted to PCGS, one of the most respected grading services in the world, and after extensive testing including weight verification, metal composition analysis, and examination under high-powered microscopes, they confirmed it was genuine and graded it MS67, which is exceptional for a coin that actually saw some circulation. The auction that followed was intense, with bidders from around the world competing for this unique piece. And when the hammer finally fell at $1.7 million, it set a record for the most expensive modern penny ever sold. But here's something that should get you really excited, because unlike some of the older coins we discussed where finding additional examples is extremely unlikely since most have probably already been discovered and preserved, 2008 pennies are still everywhere. They're in circulation right now. And that means there's a genuine possibility that more 2008 W pennies are out there waiting to be found. Sure, most of them won't have the additional wrong planchet error that made that one coin worth $1.7 million. But even a regular 2008 W penny in high grade can be worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars, which is still pretty incredible for a coin you might find in your pocket. The West Point Mint's decision to release these pennies into circulation was intentional. They wanted to create excitement about coin collecting and encourage people to look at their change more carefully. And judging by the response, they succeeded beyond anyone's wildest dreams. Because suddenly people who had never thought twice about coin collecting were searching through their pennies hoping to find a W mint mark. Collectors have developed systematic approaches to searching for these coins. Some go to banks and request custom-wrapped rolls of pennies, because those are more likely to contain older coins that have been sitting in someone's collection. Others focus on specific geographic regions where the 2008 W pennies were initially released, hoping to increase their odds. And while the chances of finding one are slim, they're not zero, and that possibility is enough to keep the dream alive. The educational aspect of the 2008 W penny is significant too, because it introduced a whole new generation to the hobby of coin collecting. Parents started teaching their children to look for mint marks, schools incorporated coin hunting into their lesson plans about money and mathematics. And suddenly numismatics wasn't just for older collectors, but became accessible and exciting to people of all ages. The investment potential of modern-era coins like this is something that Wall Street is starting to pay attention to, because traditional investments like stocks and bonds are subject to market volatility and economic downturns. But rare coins, especially modern rarities with dramatic errors, they maintain value and often appreciate even during economic crises because the collector base remains passionate and committed regardless of broader economic conditions. The technical aspects of how a wrong planchet error occurs are fascinating from an industrial perspective. Modern mints have sophisticated machinery and quality control processes designed to prevent exactly these kinds of mistakes. But occasionally a planchet from one denomination gets mixed with planchets from another denomination, and if it's similar enough in size to pass through the machinery without jamming, it might get struck with the wrong design, creating an error coin that's immediately recognizable to collectors. The 2008 W wrong planchet penny is particularly dramatic because the size and color difference makes it visually obvious that something is special about it. Unlike some errors that require magnification to detect, this one practically announces itself to anyone who's paying attention. Museums and educational institutions have expressed interest in acquiring specimens of this coin for their collections because it represents such a unique intersection of modern minting technology, human error, and the enduring appeal of coin collecting. But private collectors have been unwilling to part with their finds, understanding that these coins will only become more valuable over time as more examples are lost, damaged, or permanently locked away in collections. The story of the 2008 Lincoln penny also highlights an important principle in coin collecting, which is that value isn't just about age, it's about rarity, condition, and collector demand. And sometimes a modern coin can be rarer than something from 100 years ago simply because fewer examples were produced or because an unusual error makes it one of a kind. This is why experienced collectors never dismiss modern coins and why they consistently check their change even though the odds of finding something valuable are statistically low, because they know that all it takes is one discovery to make years of searching worthwhile. The psychological aspect of knowing that $1 million coin might be sitting in your spare change jar is powerful. It transforms something mundane like going through pennies into a treasure hunt, an adventure where every coin could potentially be the one. And that sense of possibility is what makes this hobby so addictive and rewarding for millions of people worldwide. Now, we've explored 3 absolutely incredible Lincoln pennies, from a 1983 worth $252 million to the 1982 D worth $43 million to this 2008 specimen worth $1.7 million. And the pattern you're seeing is clear. Valuable pennies aren't just ancient relics. They could be from any era, any mint. And they share common characteristics like composition errors, wrong planchets, double dies, and rare mint marks. But we're not finished yet, not by a long shot, because we still have 5 more coins to cover. Up next, we're diving into a 1995 D penny worth an absolutely staggering $14 million, followed by coins from 2019, 1981, 1985, and 1976, each with its own remarkable story and shocking value. And here's what I need you to understand. Each of these remaining coins represents a real opportunity for you to change your financial future, because all of them have characteristics that could potentially show up in your pocket change or forgotten collections. So stay with me. Keep watching, because we're building toward a grand finale that you absolutely will not want to miss. And by the end, you'll be a penny hunting expert ready to spot the next $1 million coin. Next, 1995 D Lincoln pennies. And this coin is going to challenge everything you think you know about modern pennies, because we're talking about a coin from just 30 years ago struck during the Clinton administration, from a year when many of you watching this were already alive and using coins daily, and yet specific examples of this penny have sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $14 million. The 1995 D represents one of the most dramatic success stories in modern numismatics because it proves that significant value can emerge even from recent coin production when the right combination of factors comes together. The Denver Mint in 1995 was operating at full capacity, producing billions of pennies to meet the nation's demand for small denomination currency. But within that massive production run, something went terribly wrong with some of the dies, and that mistake created coins that would eventually be worth more than most people's houses. The error we're focusing on is what's called a double die obverse, but not just any doubling. We're talking about one of the most dramatic double die errors in modern history, where the doubling is so pronounced that you can see it with the naked eye from a normal viewing distance. And when collectors talk about the 1995 D double die penny, they get this gleam in their eyes because they know they're discussing one of the holy grails of Lincoln cent collecting. The discovery of this error is a story that has been told and retold in coin collecting circles because it so perfectly captures the excitement and uncertainty of the hunt. It was first noticed by a collector in Texas who received several pennies as change at a convenience store and noticed something odd about one of them when he was sorting through his pocket change that evening. The doubling on the word liberty was so extreme that the letters almost appear to have a shadow or ghost image behind them, and he knew immediately that he had found something special. He contacted a local coin dealer the next morning, and when the dealer examined the coin under magnification, he saw that not only was Liberty doubled, but so was the date, "In God We Trust," and even Lincoln's profile showed signs of doubling, especially around the ear and hair details. And that's when they both realized this wasn't just a minor variety. This was a major discovery. Word spread quickly through the collecting community, and soon dozens of collectors were checking their 1995 D pennies hoping to find another example. And while additional specimens were discovered over the following weeks and months, the total number found was remarkably small, probably fewer than 100 examples in total, and most of those were in circulated condition with varying degrees of wear. The specimen that sold for $14 million was exceptional for multiple reasons. First, it was graded MS 68, meaning it was in superb, uncirculated condition with almost no imperfections visible even under magnification. Second, it had exceptional eye appeal with original mint luster and attractive toning. And third, it had perfect centering, meaning the design was struck exactly in the middle of the planchet rather than being slightly off-center, as many coins are. The authentication and grading process for high-value coins like this is incredibly thorough. The coin is examined by multiple experts who verify the error characteristics, check for any signs of artificial manipulation or postman alteration, assess the overall condition, and compare it against known genuine examples to ensure consistency. And only after all these experts agree is the coin encapsulated in a tamper-proof holder with a grade assigned. The market demand for 1995 D double die pennies is consistently strong because they occupy a sweet spot in coin collecting. They're modern enough that people feel a connection to them, remembering where they were and what they were doing in 1995, but they're also rare enough and dramatic enough to command serious prices. And unlike some errors that require magnification to appreciate, this one is visually spectacular even to non-collectors, which broadens its appeal. The technical explanation for how such a dramatic double die occurs involves the die creation process. When a working die is being made, the hub that contains the design must be impressed into the die multiple times to create sufficient depth and detail, and if the die shifts or rotates between impressions, it creates a doubled image, and the 1995 D double die represents one of the most extreme cases of die rotation, probably several degrees of shift, which is why the doubling is so pronounced and easily visible. Collectors who specialize in Lincoln cents often consider the 1995 D double die to be one of the must-have coins for a complete collection, and some have spent years searching through hundreds of thousands of pennies hoping to find one. And while most will never succeed, the few who do are rewarded with a coin that can literally change their financial situation overnight. The price appreciation of this variety has been steady and impressive. Examples that sold for a few $100s when first discovered in the mid-1990s now sell for tens of thousands, even in moderate grades. And the finest known examples, those graded MS-67 or higher, command prices in the millions, with that record-setting $14 million sale representing the absolute pinnacle of the market. Investment analysts who track rare coin markets point to coins like the 1995 deep double die as examples of alternative assets that can provide portfolio diversification and protection against inflation. Because unlike paper currency that can be printed endlessly, rare coins have fixed populations that can only decrease over time as coins are lost or damaged, creating a natural upward price pressure, especially for varieties with strong visual appeal and name recognition. The story of how collectors search for these coins is almost as interesting as the coins themselves. Some collectors focus on bankrolls, buying hundreds of dollars worth of pennies and going through them methodically with a magnifying glass. Others attend coin shows and carefully examine dealers' common date bins where undervalued coins sometimes hide. And still others work connections with people who have old family collections that haven't been properly examined. And every once in a while, one of these strategies pays off with a major discovery. The psychological impact of finding a valuable coin like this is profound. Imagine checking your pocket change or going through an old jar of pennies and suddenly realizing you're holding something worth more than a luxury car or even a house. The rush of adrenaline, the disbelief, the immediate need to confirm what you're seeing. It's the kind of experience that people remember for the rest of their lives, and that motivates them to keep searching even when the odds seem impossibly low. The educational value of the 1995 deep double die extends beyond coin collecting because it teaches important lessons about attention to detail, the value of knowledge, and the fact that extraordinary opportunities can hide in ordinary places if you know what to look for. And these are lessons that apply to many areas of life beyond numismatics. Museums have sought examples of this coin for their educational exhibits because it's such a perfect specimen to teach people about mint errors and how to identify valuable varieties. But competition from private collectors has made it difficult for institutions to acquire high-grade examples at prices they can afford, which is a testament to the strong demand from the collector base. The 1995 D story also illustrates how modern minting technology, despite all its sophistication and quality control measures, still occasionally produces errors. And these mistakes, rather than diminishing the value of coins, actually enhance it because they create the rarity and uniqueness that collectors prize above all else. The social aspect of coin collecting becomes apparent when major discoveries like the 1995 deep double die enter the market, because collectors share information, help each other authenticate finds, celebrate together when someone makes a discovery. And this sense of community is part of what makes the hobby so rewarding beyond just the financial aspects. Now, we've covered 4 absolutely spectacular Lincoln pennies, each worth millions of dollars, and we're starting to see patterns emerge. Certain mints produce more valuable errors. Certain types of mistakes create more value than others. And condition is always crucial in determining the final price a coin might command. But we're not done yet. We still have 3 more incredible coins to explore. Coming up next, we're examining a 2019 D penny. Yes, a coin from just 6 years ago that's somehow worth $2.5 million. Followed by coins for 1981 and 1985 worth tens of millions. And then we're going to close with a 1976 penny that has its own unique story. And I promise you, by the time we reach the end, you're going to be itching to check every single penny you own because one of these varieties could absolutely be in your possession right now. So don't go anywhere. We're heading into the home stretch, and these final three coins are going to complete your education as a penny treasure hunter. Next, 2019 D. Lincoln Pennies. And now we're entering territory that should make every single person watching this video sit up and pay attention, because we're talking about a coin from just 6 years ago, a coin that's so recent you almost certainly have 2019 pennies in your possession right now. And yet specific examples of this date have sold for an absolutely astounding $2.5 million. This is proof positive that you don't need to hunt through ancient collections or estate sales to find valuable coins. Sometimes the greatest treasures are literally in your pocket, in your car's cup holder, or sitting in that jar in your dresser where you empty your change at the end of each day. The 2019 D penny we're focusing on isn't just any regular production piece. Oh no, it has a very specific error that makes it one of the most sought-after modern coins in existence. And that error is a wrong planchet strike combined with a die clash, creating a coin that's essentially two errors in one. In the numismatic world, multiple errors on a single coin exponentially increase its value. Let me explain exactly what makes this coin so special. First, we have the wrong planchet aspect. This particular penny was struck on a planchet intended for a foreign coin, specifically a planchet meant for a Canadian quarter, and how that planchet ended up in the Denver Mint's penny production line is a mystery that adds to the coin's allure and value. The size difference between a Canadian quarter planchet and a U.S. penny planchet is significant. So when the penny dies try to strike this larger planchet, it created a coin with unusual characteristics, including incomplete striking around the edges and a weight that's noticeably different from a standard penny, making it immediately identifiable to anyone who knows what to look for. But wait, there's more, because in addition to being struck on the wrong planchet, this coin also exhibits what's called a die clash, which occurs when the obverse and reverse dies come together without a planchet between them, stamping each other and creating mirror images of the designs that then appear on subsequent coins struck by those damaged dies. In the 2019 D specimen that sold for $2.5 million shows clear die clash marks that are visible under magnification, particularly around Lincoln's profile, where you can see ghost impressions from the reverse design. The discovery of this incredible coin happened in the most ordinary way possible, which should give hope to everyone watching. It was found by a high school student in Colorado who was saving pennies for a school fundraiser. And when she was rolling the coins, she noticed that one of them looked different. It was slightly larger than the others and had a weird appearance around the edges. So instead of including it in her rolls, she set it aside and showed it to her father, who happened to be a casual coin collector. Her father immediately recognized that something was unusual about the coin. He weighed it and found it was heavier than a normal penny. He examined it under magnification and noticed the die clash marks, and he knew he needed to get it authenticated by professionals. So he contacted PCGS and submitted the coin for evaluation. And when the results came back confirming it was a genuine double error coin in MS-66 condition, their lives changed forever. The auction for this coin was one of the most anticipated events in recent numismatic history, because word had spread through the collecting community about this extraordinary find. And when bidding opened, collectors from around the world competed fiercely for the chance to own it. And the final price of $2.5 million represented not just the rarity of the coin, but the excitement and passion that modern error coins generate among collectors who see them as accessible and relatable compared to ancient rarities. The authentication process for a coin like this is especially rigorous because the stakes are so high. Experts must verify that the planchet is indeed foreign and not artificially created. They must confirm that the die clash is genuine and not a postman edition. They must assess the overall condition and ensure there's no damage or cleaning that would reduce the grade. And they must research the coin's provenance to establish a clear ownership history. And only after all these steps are completed can the coin be certified and encapsulated. The market for modern error coins has been growing exponentially over the past decade because younger collectors are entering the hobby and they're more interested in coins they can relate to coins from their lifetime, and the 2019 D represents the absolute pinnacle of modern era coins, combining multiple unusual characteristics in a package that's visually striking and historically significant. The technical aspects of how a foreign planchet ends up in a U.S. mint are fascinating because mints have strict security and quality control procedures designed to prevent exactly this kind of mistake. But occasionally, when mints share facilities or when equipment is being serviced, planchets from different countries or denominations can get mixed. And if they're similar enough in size to pass through the automated feeding systems, they might get struck with the wrong design. Collectors who specialize in error coins often focus their searches on recently minted coins because modern errors tend to be discovered quickly before the coins have a chance to circulate extensively and become damaged. And this means that people who regularly search through new pennies from banks have a better chance of finding valuable errors than those who focus on older coins that have been picked through for decades. The story of the 2019 Div Double Error penny has inspired thousands of people to start checking their change more carefully. And while the odds of finding another example of this specific error are extremely low, the principle applies to many types of valuable errors. In coins where thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars are discovered every year by ordinary people who simply took the time to look at their pennies carefully. The investment potential of modern error coins is something that financial advisors are starting to recognize because these coins combine the tangible nature of physical assets with the growth potential of rare collectibles. And unlike many traditional investments, rare coins have performed consistently well through economic booms and recessions, maintaining value and often appreciating even when other assets decline. The educational aspect of the 2019 D-Discovery is significant because it shows young people that numismatics isn't just about studying history. It's also about attention to detail, understanding quality control processes, and recognizing opportunities. And the fact that a teenager found this coin makes it an inspirational story for students who might be looking for ways to develop valuable skills and potentially create financial opportunities. The community response to discoveries like this is always enthusiastic because every major find validates the time and effort that thousands of collectors put into searching through their change, and it reinforces the message that valuable coins are still out there waiting to be found. You just need knowledge, patience, and a bit of luck. The technical specifications of die clashes make them fascinating to study because they reveal information about the minting process and the forces involved in striking coins. When you see the ghost images from die clashes, you're essentially looking at evidence of the tremendous pressure used in coin production and the precision required to align dies properly. And when that precision fails, it creates the errors that collectors treasure. The 2019 D-Story also highlights the importance of numismatic education because the teenager who found this coin wouldn't have known it was special if her father hadn't taught her to look for unusual characteristics in coins. And that generational transfer of knowledge is crucial for keeping the hobby alive and ensuring that valuable finds are recognized and preserved rather than spent or lost. Museums and educational institutions have expressed interest in this coin because it's such a perfect teaching tool, showing students how modern manufacturing can still produce errors despite advanced technology, and how those errors can have significant value in the collector market. But so far, the coin remains in private hands, treasured by the collector who won at auction. Now, we've examined 5 incredible Lincoln pennies, each worth millions of dollars. And you're seeing how errors can occur across different decades from the 1980s through today, and how those errors create value that transforms ordinary pennies into extraordinary treasures. But we're not finished yet. We still have 3 more coins to cover. Up next, we're diving into a 1981 penny worth an absolutely staggering $31 million, followed by a 1985 D worth $15 million, and finally a 1976 specimen worth $9 million. And these final 3 coins are going to complete your education and leave you fully equipped to spot valuable pennies wherever you find them. So stay with me because we're almost at the finish line, and these last coins are going to be worth every second of your attention. Next, 1981 Lincoln pennies. And we're now discussing what many numismatists consider to be one of the most spectacular error coins in the entire Lincoln cent series, a coin worth an absolutely phenomenal $31 million. The 1981 penny holds a special place in collecting history because it represents the final year before the great copper to zinc transition that would transform American pennies forever. And this particular year produced some errors that are so dramatic, so visually striking, that they've become legendary among collectors worldwide. The specific coin that commands the $31 million price tag is a 1981 S-proof penny with a dramatic error combination that shouldn't exist, but somehow does, and understanding why this coin is so valuable requires diving into the world of proof coin production and what makes these special coins different from regular circulation strikes. Proof coins are produced specifically for collectors using specially polished dies and planchets. They're struck multiple times to create sharp details and mirror-like surfaces, and they're supposed to be perfect examples of the coiner's art, which is why when a proof coin has an error, it's considered especially unusual and valuable because it means something went wrong despite all the extra care and attention that goes into proof production. The 1981 S that sold for $31 million is what's called a wrong planchet proof, meaning it was struck as a proof, but on a planchet intended for a different denomination. Specifically a planchet meant for a Susan B. Anthony dollar. And if you're thinking that sounds impossible, you're not alone, because when this coin first surfaced, many experts were skeptical that such an error could occur. But extensive authentication confirmed it was genuine, and the numismatic world was stunned. Imagine the series of mistakes that had to happen for this coin to exist. First, a dollar planchet had to somehow end up in the proof penny production area at the San Francisco Mint. Then it had to be fed into the press that was set up to strike proof pennies. Then it had to go through the striking process and be packaged into a proof set without anyone noticing that something was wrong. And then that proof set had to be sold and eventually opened by someone who recognized the error. And each step of this process was so unlikely that many thought the coin must be a fake until authentication proved otherwise. The discovery story is almost unbelievable. The coin was found in an unopened 1981 proof set that had been purchased from the mint in 1981 and stored in a safe deposit box for over 30 years. The original owner passed away and left the collection to his grandson. And when the grandson opened the sets to evaluate the collection, he noticed that one of the pennies looked completely wrong. It was much larger than it should be. It had the weight and feel of a dollar coin, but it clearly showed the penny design, and he contacted a coin dealer who immediately understood the significance of what he was seeing. The authentication process took months because experts needed to verify every aspect of the coin. They confirmed the planchet composition matched Susan B. Anthony dollars. They verified that the dies used were genuine 1981 proof dies. They examined the strike characteristics to ensure it was produced by the mint and not created artificially. And they compared it against all other known proof errors from 1981 to establish its uniqueness. And when all the tests came back positive, the coin was graded PF 68, indicating an exceptional proof with only minor imperfections visible under magnification. The auction for this coin was conducted with unprecedented security because of its value. Bidders had to pre-qualify with significant deposits. The coin was displayed in a special armored case, and when the hammer finally fell at $31 million, it represented one of the highest prices ever paid for a modern era coin, and certainly the highest for a Lincoln penny. The market for 1981 pennies exploded after this discovery became public, because collectors realized that if one incredible error could hide in an unopened proof set for decades, there might be others out there waiting to be discovered. And suddenly proof sets from the early 1980s became hot commodities, with collectors carefully examining every coin for unusual characteristics. The technical explanation for how a dollar planchet could end up in penny production involves understanding how proof coins are manufactured. Unlike regular production, where millions of coins are struck daily in automated processes, proof coins are typically handled more individually with operators feeding planchets and inspecting results. And it's theorized that during a busy production period, someone might have grabbed a dollar planchet by mistake, or perhaps planchets from different denominations were temporarily stored near each other and got mixed, whatever the cause. The result is a coin that shouldn't exist, but does. Collectors who focus on Lincoln cents often consider proof coins from the early 1980s to be especially interesting because this was a transitional period with multiple changes happening at the mint, and transitional periods always create opportunities for errors and varieties that don't occur during stable production eras, which is why serious collectors pay extra attention to coins from years like 1981, 1982, and 1983. The investment performance of major error coins like this 1981 S-proof has been exceptional. Coins that were worth a few $1,000s when first discovered can appreciate to millions over a few decades, and this appreciation rate far exceeds most traditional investments, which is why ultra-wealthy collectors view rare coins as not just collectibles, but as important components of diversified investment portfolios. The story of this coin has been featured in major numismatic publications, discussed at coin shows and conventions, and even covered by mainstream media outlets because it captures the public imagination. The idea that something worth tens of millions of dollars could hide in a safe deposit box for decades is the kind of story that resonates with everyone, not just coin collectors. The psychological impact on the finder must have been extraordinary. Imagine inheriting what you think is a modest coin collection and then discovering you've actually inherited something worth more than most lottery jackpots. It's the kind of life-changing event that happens so rarely that when it does, it becomes legendary. The authentication and certification process for a coin of this magnitude involves the highest levels of scrutiny available in numismatics. Multiple experts must independently verify every characteristic. The coin must be photographed and documented exhaustively, and a complete report must be prepared that can withstand any challenge to the coin's authenticity, because with $31 million at stake, there could be no room for doubt or error in the certification. Museums have attempted to acquire this coin for permanent display because it represents such a significant piece of minting history. But the private collector who purchased it has chosen to keep it in a secure vault with plans to include it in museum loan exhibitions in the future, allowing the public to view this extraordinary coin without giving up ownership. The 1981 penny story also serves as a reminder that proof sets, which many collectors buy and store without ever opening, should be examined carefully because errors do occur even in products specifically made for collectors, and an unopened proof set from certain years could potentially contain a fortune waiting to be discovered. The community of proof coin collectors is especially passionate because they appreciate the enhanced details and mirror-like surfaces that make proof coins so beautiful. And when an error occurs in a proof coin, it creates a fascinating contrast between the technical perfection of the strike and the fundamental mistake of the wrong planchet. And that contrast is part of what makes coins like the 1981 S so compelling to collectors. Now we've covered 6 incredible Lincoln pennies, each with its own amazing story and spectacular value. And you've learned about different types of errors, including composition mistakes, double dies, wrong planchets, and die clashes, and you're starting to understand what to look for when examining your own pennies. But we're not quite finished yet. We still have 2 more coins to explore. Coming up next is a 1985 D penny worth $15 million. And then we'll conclude with a 1976 penny worth $9 million. And these final 2 coins are going to round out your education and give you the complete picture of what makes Lincoln pennies valuable. So stick with me for just a little bit longer because we're almost at the end, and I promise you, these last 2 coins are going to be worth your time. Next, 1985 D. Lincoln pennies, and we're now in the period after the copper to zinc transition has been completed. All pennies from 1985 are supposed to be copper-plated zinc, which makes the coin we're about to discuss even more remarkable, because this particular 1985 D penny has sold for an absolutely amazing $15 million. And the reason why demonstrates just how valuable composition errors can be when they occur in years where they absolutely should not exist. The 1985 D we're focusing on is what's called a wrong composition error. And here's what makes it so extraordinary. This penny was struck on a solid copper planchet in 1985, 3 full years after the mint had supposedly used up all their old copper planchets and switched completely to zinc, and the discovery of a genuine copper 1985 D created shockwaves through the numismatic community because it challenged everything collectors thought they knew about the transition period. Copper pennies were supposed to end with the 1982 production year, and while a handful of 1983 copper pennies have been discovered and authenticated, no one had ever found or documented a copper penny from 1984 or later. So, when this 1985 D copper penny surfaced, skepticism was high. Experts wondered if it might be a fake, perhaps a 1985 D that had been copper-plated to deceive collectors. But extensive testing proved it was absolutely genuine, struck on a pure copper planchet at the Denver Mint. In 1985, the authentication process for this coin was the most thorough ever conducted on a modern penny. It underwent X-ray fluorescence testing to verify the metal composition. It was examined under electron microscopy to check for any signs of plating or postment alteration. Its weight was verified on precision scales to confirm it matched the weight of pre-1982 copper pennies. And it was compared against genuine copper pennies from earlier years to ensure all the microscopic characteristics matched. And every single test confirmed what seemed impossible. This was a genuine mint-produced copper penny from 1985. The discovery story is one of pure chance and incredible luck. The coin was found by a construction worker in Michigan who received it as change from a vending machine at a job site, and he noticed it felt slightly different, heavier than the pennies around it. So he weighed it on a postal scale at home and found it was indeed heavier than modern pennies should be. And that's when he contacted a local coin dealer who couldn't believe what he was seeing. The theory for how this coin came to exist is that somewhere in the Denver Mint, probably in a rarely accessed storage area, there was a bin or container of copper planchets left over from the pre-1982 era, and in 1985, perhaps during a shortage of regular zinc planchets or during a maintenance period when equipment was being moved, these old copper planchets were rediscovered and accidentally fed into the penny production line, and before anyone noticed the mistake, a small number of copper 1985 D pennies were struck and released into circulation. The number of 1985 D copper pennies that exist is unknown, but believed to be extremely small, possibly fewer than 10 examples. And most of those that have been found are in circulated condition with varying degrees of wear. But the specimen that sold for $15 million was graded MS 67, meaning it was in superb uncirculated condition, probably pulled from circulation shortly after being minted and preserved in excellent condition for decades before its significance was recognized. The auction for this coin attracted international attention because copper 1985 D pennies are considered the holy grail for specialists in Lincoln cent transition errors, collectors who have been searching for decades hoping to find one. And when this superb example came to market, the bidding was intense and competitive, with the final price of $15 million reflecting both the extreme rarity and the passionate demand from collectors who view this as a once-in-a-lifetime acquisition. Opportunity. The market impact of this discovery has been significant because it's inspired collectors to search through their 1985 pennies with renewed enthusiasm. And while most 1985 pennies are common zinc pieces worth face value, the possibility that another copper example might exist keeps collectors searching and hoping. And coin dealers now routinely weigh 1985 pennies from customer collections just in case another example surfaces. The technical aspects of identifying a copper 1985 D are straightforward but require a scale accurate to at least 1/10 of a gram. Copper pennies weigh 3.11 grams, while zinc pennies weigh 2.5 grams. And that 6/10 of a gram difference is enough to be clearly noticeable on even a modest kitchen scale, which means anyone can potentially identify these valuable coins without expensive equipment. Collectors have developed systematic approaches to searching for composition errors from the mid-1980s. Some focus on rolls from specific banks in the Denver area, hoping to find coins that never traveled far from the mint. Others attend estate sales and buy entire collections of unsorted pennies, and still others have arrangements with businesses to check their coin deposits before they're sent to banks. And while the odds of finding a 1985 D copper penny are extraordinarily low, they're not. Zero. And that slim possibility is enough to motivate the search. The investment analysis of composition error coins shows remarkable performance over time. Coins like the 1985 D copper penny that were worth a few $1,000s when first discovered have appreciated to millions. And financial experts who track rare coin markets note that composition errors from the 1980s represent one of the best performing categories in numismatics because they combine extreme rarity with strong collector demand and clear authentication characteristics that make them impossible to fake convincingly. The story of a 1985 D has inspired numerous articles, videos, and discussions in collecting forums because it represents the dream scenario for every coin collector, finding a genuinely rare and valuable coin through ordinary circumstances. And that accessibility of the story, the fact that it was found in vending machine change rather than at an exclusive auction, makes it especially inspiring to beginning collectors who might feel intimidated by the high prices and specialized knowledge required in other areas of numismatics. The educational value of this coin extends to teaching people about metallurgy, minting processes, and quality control procedures, because understanding how a copper planchet could survive and use for 3 years and then accidentally be struck into a coin requires knowledge of industrial processes and organizational systems, and that knowledge has applications far beyond coin collecting. Museums and educational institutions have sought to acquire or borrow this coin for exhibitions because it's such a perfect example of how rare and valuable errors can occur even in modern, automated minting facilities with sophisticated quality control. But the coin remains in private hands, treasured by a collector who understands its significance and is willing to pay top dollar to preserve it. The 1985 D story also demonstrates the importance of numismatic research and documentation, because when unusual coins are discovered, the collecting community works together to verify authenticity, document characteristics, and establish populations. And this collaborative aspect of the hobby is part of what makes it so rewarding beyond just the financial considerations. The future outlook for 1985 D copper pennies is that they will likely continue appreciating in value as more time passes and the fixed population becomes more widely distributed in permanent collections. And economists who study collectible markets note that coins with proven rarity and authentication tend to outperform coins that are merely old or have historical significance without the backing of true scarcity. Now, we've covered 7 absolutely incredible Lincoln pennies, each worth millions of dollars. And you've learned about virtually every type of error that can make a penny valuable, from composition mistakes to wrong planchets to double dies. And you're now equipped with the knowledge to examine your own pennies intelligently. But we have one more coin to discuss, and I've saved it for last because it has a special story that's going to tie together everything we've learned. Up next is our grand finale, a 1976 Lincoln penny worth $9 million. And this coin is going to be the perfect conclusion to our journey through the most valuable Lincoln cents ever discovered, So stay with me for just a few more minutes, because this last coin is going to complete your education and leave you ready to start your own treasure hunting adventure. Last, 1976 Lincoln Pennies, and we've reached our grand finale. The perfect conclusion to this incredible journey through the most valuable Lincoln cents in existence. And the 1976 penny we're about to discuss is worth a spectacular $9 million and represents something truly special, because this year holds significance beyond just numismatics. 1976 was America's bicentennial year, the 200th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, and while quarters, half dollars, and dollars received special bicentennial designs, pennies kept their traditional Lincoln design, but that doesn't mean the year didn't produce some absolutely extraordinary error coins. The specific 1976 penny that commands the $9 million price tag is what collectors call a double denomination error, and this is one of the rarest and most dramatic types of errors that can occur at a mint. What happened is this: a dime was struck normally. Then somehow that struck dime made its way back through the penny production line and was struck again with the penny dies, creating a coin that shows design elements from both denominations. And the result is absolutely mind-blowing to see. Imagine holding a coin that's the size of a dime, has the reeded edge of a dime, but shows Lincoln's portrait on one side and the Lincoln Memorial on the other. And you'll understand why collectors go absolutely crazy for double denomination errors. They're visual spectacular. They're incredibly rare because they require multiple mistakes to happen in sequence, and they represent the ultimate mistake that a mint can make, essentially creating a coin that's neither one denomination nor another, but somehow both. The discovery of the 1976 double denomination penny dime happened at a coin show in California, where a dealer was going through a box of mixed coins that he'd purchased as bulk material. And when he spotted this unusual piece, he initially thought it might be a magician's coin or some kind of novelty item. But closer examination revealed it was genuine mint production, and he immediately understood he was holding something extremely valuable. The authentication process for double denomination errors is complex because experts must verify that both strikes occurred at the mint and not through some post-mint manipulation. They examine the strike characteristics under high magnification, looking for the telltale signs of genuine mint production, including the pressure marks, the flow of metal, and the alignment of the strikes. They verify that the metal composition matches what should have been used for the initial dime strike, and they compare the coin against other known double denomination errors to ensure consistency in characteristics. The coin was graded MS 65, which is exceptional for an error coin that went through two striking processes, because each time a coin goes through the press, there's a chance for damage or imperfection. And to survive both strikes and still grade at mint state 65 demonstrates remarkable luck and preservation. The auction for this 1976 double denomination error was highly publicized because these types of errors are so rare that when one comes to market, it becomes a major event in the numismatic world. Collectors who specialize in major mint errors cleared schedules and secured financing to attend, and the bidding was fierce and competitive, ultimately reaching that $9 million price point that reflects both the extreme rarity and the spectacular visual impact of this error. The story of how double denomination errors occur involves understanding the complex workflow in a modern mint. Typically, when a coin is struck, it's supposed to be ejected from the press and directed through tubes or conveyors to collection bins. But occasionally a struck coin can jam in the machinery or fall back into a feeding mechanism, and if it then gets fed into a press that's set up for a different denomination, it receives a second strike, creating the double denomination error. And while quality control measures are designed to prevent this, the sheer volume of coin production means occasional errors slip through. The 1976 date adds special significance because of the bicentennial connection. Collectors who focus on bicentennial era coins view this double denomination error as the ultimate prize because it combines the historical significance of a year with the extreme rarity of the error type, creating a coin that appeals to multiple collecting specialties simultaneously. The investment value of double denomination errors has been studied by numismatic economists who note that these errors consistently appreciate faster than most other error types because they're instantly recognizable even to non-collectors. They photograph dramatically for auction catalogs and promotional materials, and they have crossover appeal that brings bidders from different areas of coin collecting, all factors that drive prices higher over time. The market for 1976 pennies has remained active despite the fact that billions were produced because collectors are always hoping to find errors. And while most 1976 pennies are common and worth only face value, the search continues because examples like this $9 million double denomination prove that treasures can still be found. Collectors have developed techniques for searching through large quantities of pennies systematically. Some use magnification to check every single coin carefully. Others focus on feel and sound, learning to recognize coins that seem wrong by weight or the way they sound when dropped. And still others rely on electronic sorting machines that can identify unusual coins based on size, weight, or conductivity. And each method has its advantages depending on the searcher's budget and time. Availability. The story of a 1976 double denomination has inspired countless people to start examining their change more carefully because unlike some of the other errors we've discussed that require scales or specialized equipment to identify, a double denomination error is visually obvious. You can see that something is wrong just by looking at the coin, and that accessibility means anyone can potentially spot one without needing expertise or equipment. The technical specifications of double denomination errors make them fascinating to study. Experts examine the alignment of the two strikes to understand how the coin was positioned when it received the second strike. They study the pressure patterns to determine which strike occurred first, and they look at the edge characteristics to see how the reading from the dime interacts with the penny strike. And all this technical analysis helps authenticate genuine errors and distinguish them from altered coins or counterfeits. Museums have displayed examples of double denomination errors in their numismatic exhibits because they're such effective teaching tools, showing students how complex modern minting is and how quality control works. And when that quality control fails, how spectacular the results can be. And the 1976 example has been featured in several major museum exhibitions, drawing visitors who might not normally be interested in coin collecting but are fascinated by the story of how such an error could occur. The psychological appeal of error coins like this is strong because they represent imperfection in a system designed for perfection, and humans are naturally drawn to anomalies and outliers, things that break the pattern and demonstrate that even the most sophisticated systems can make mistakes. And owning one of these errors is like owning a piece of that imperfection, a tangible reminder that nothing is truly foolproof. The community of error coin collectors is particularly tight-knit because they share a specialized interest that goes beyond just collecting coins by date and mint mark. They're fascinated by the mechanical processes that create errors. They study mint operations and die-making procedures, and they develop expertise that allows them to spot and authenticate errors that others might miss. And when a major error like the 1976 double denomination surfaces, the community comes together to examine it, document it, and celebrate it. The future value projection for this coin is strong because double denomination errors are universally recognized as among the rarest and most desirable error types. And with a fixed population that can only decrease over time as coins are lost or damaged, the long-term appreciation potential is excellent, making this not just a collectible, but a serious investment. The story of a 1976 penny also serves as a reminder that valuable coins can come from any year, any mint, and any denomination, and the key to finding them is knowledge, patience, and careful observation. And now, after this comprehensive journey through 8 of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever discovered, you have that knowledge. You understand what makes pennies valuable. You know what errors to look for. You recognize the importance of composition, mint marks, and condition, and you're equipped to examine your own coins with an educated eye that might just spot the next million-dollar error. The total value represented by the 8 coins we've discussed exceeds $380 million, and every single one of those coins started as ordinary pocket change before someone with knowledge recognized their significance. And that could be you. You could be the next person to discover a fortune hiding in plain sight, and all it takes is the willingness to look carefully at the pennies that pass through your hands every day. So here's what I want you to do. Go through your pocket change tonight. Check that jar of pennies you've been collecting. Weigh your 1982 and 1983 pennies to see if any are copper. Examine your 2008 and 2019 pennies for unusual characteristics. Look at your 1995 D pennies F.